Good evening. My name is Tricia Crowley with the League of Women Voters, and on behalf of the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, and the News-Gazette, I welcome you to tonight's candidate forum. Tonight's forum is for the Democratic primary, the office of Alderman in the City of Urbana, Ward 5. Because of the pandemic, we are unfortunately not presenting this forum in person. We have received many questions for these forums, and similar questions have been grouped into one. So your question may not be asked in precisely the form in which you submitted it. In addition, these forums for City of Urbana Ward Alderman have generated a great many questions. So we for sure are not going to be able to get through all of them. So I am the moderator for this forum, and the order for the candidates is alphabetical, and therefore Chaundra Bishop will start opening and Meghan McDonald will do the closing. So with that, oh wait, missed something. Let's back up a little bit. After this forum, the video will be available on the League's YouTube channel and Facebook page. It will also be broadcast by UPTV, and the UPTV schedule will be available on the City of Urbana website. In addition, I'd urge everyone to go to the votechampaign.org website, where there is a candidates forum. It's a nonpartisan website with all information about all of the candidates in this primary election. And in addition, the candidate forums will be attached to that information. So with that, let's begin. 2 minutes opening. Chaundra Bishop.
Thank you, Tricia and Jana, for having me this evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, the News-Gazette, and the NAACP for hosting this forum. Over the last year, there have been so many struggles uncovered between the pandemic and the racial reckoning that began over the summer. It became clear to me I could have an impact on my community as a representative on the Urbana City Council. My entire life, I've had this desire to help people and bring about real, tangible, sustainable change. I've done so through my work in public health, which prevents disease, promotes health, and generally works to create a better community. To become involved in politics means something different to everyone. While some people may see it as a game or a source of power and influence, I see it as an opportunity to better the lives of people in my community. To me, politics is personal. It's about community and it's about trust. To that end, I believe city government must be rooted in equity, from the decisions we make to the policies we enact, the way we listen to each other as neighbors. I will bring representation that's accessible, equitable, and rooted. I will bring representation that's accessible, equitable, and engaged. I have a history of community connections and getting things done. I work with people every day to get real results for community improvement. And it's time I bring that perspective and experience to Ward 5. My campaign is centered around public health. Racism, poverty, police brutality, and affordable housing are all public health issues. There's so much more that we could be doing to better our community, and I know that with my public health background, I can make a real difference right here in Ward 5. The issues of accountable policing, affordable housing, safe and vibrant neighborhoods, protecting the free Urbana Free Library, and public health are central components of my campaign. These things matter to me, and they have to be tackled in an organized, sustainable manner in order to generate a long-lasting effect. I intend to bring my knowledge and experience to the Urbana City Council to better lives of every person in the community, and I hope I can count on your support.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop. Ms. McDonald.
Alrighty. Hi, everyone at home watching this, and hello and thank you to our hosts for having Chaundra and I on to talk about Ward 5 and what it means to us. I want to start out by introducing myself. My name is Meghan McDonald. That's how it'll be printed on the ballot, but I prefer to go by Meg in writings and conversations. She, they are my preferred pronouns. No biggie if you mess it up or you slip up. We're all human and hopefully just trying our best. So what can I say? I've lived in Champaign, Urbana for almost a decade. I went to school at U of I I've worked in many different parts of town, bars around town. I used to nanny for a family of 3 kids. I currently work in Ward 5 and enjoy seeing a lot of my neighbors in the weird masked capacity that we can. All this to say that I've been working class. I'm still working class. I'm trying to support my family and community simultaneously. I'm volunteering to run for city council because I genuinely love Urbana and the people who live here. I'm a people person, and consequently, because of a handful of variables that lined up, I am now trying to be a person for the people of Ward 5. Someone who has been listening to the concerns citizens have been bringing to the table during public input and not just leaving them on the table, but pushing for them to become actionable. My political knowledge, especially my local political knowledge, is rooted in my personal experiences of outreach and organizing. It's uncomfortable. It's hard to talk about what I've done as an organizer because it's easy to take for granted what my friends and I do. But I think they're things that everyone should be doing. Stuff like helping a struggling mother afford diapers or healthcare, or housing someone, or rallying the community to house somebody, because I know that that's what this community is capable of doing. And I think the office of public office should be helping amplify that. I hope to talk more about my campaign pillars, like defunding the police and creating a more accessible, transparent council for everybody, and how I got here, which is really all because of community support. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. For the first question for Ms. McDonald, and we will rotate who goes first on the questions as we go along. Why is the city of Urbana important to you? And how will Ward 5 and the city as a whole be made better because of your service?
Great question. So the city of Urbana is important to me because I live here, because all my friends live here, because my neighbors live here, because honestly, I've lived here for a long time, 10 years, and when I say I love it, I genuinely do mean that. But when I look outside my window and I see somebody having their human rights violated simply because of their color of their skin, it makes me want to try harder and make Urbana the progressive city that I know that it can be. And when I say that, I just mean that I witnessed an event where a Black man was pulled over simply for wearing a hoodie, and 13 cop cars showed up. And so that was an incident that happened back in March, and last March, so a year ago, and that was just in Ward 5, right outside my window. So yeah, I love Urbana, and I just want to make sure that it gets better.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bishop, why is the city of Urbana important to you, and how will Ward 5 and the city as a whole be better because of your service on the city council? You have to unmute yourself, yeah.
Of course.
Apparently that's the phrase for 2020. You have to
Yeah, spilling into 2021.
Yeah.
So why is Urbana important to me? It's a unique city. I love the diversity of people here. There's an eclectic mix of personalities and the character in downtown Urbana. And as a public servant to the city and the ward, I would bring my experience as a community collaborator, a public health professional who has worked with governments, nonprofits, and private companies collaboratively to ensure the health and safety of our community. To Urbana, I not only bring my community leadership experience and passion, but my unique lived experience as an African-American woman who has worked to increase the visibility and well-being of underserved communities.
Thank you. Ms. Bishop, what are the unaddressed issues in Ward 5?
So it's funny, I've heard a lot of different issues from residents. I've heard them complain about sidewalks, whether they're lacking in some areas or in need of repair in others. It's hard to believe, but a broken sidewalk can have a major impact on a person's quality of life and even their property values. As your city representative, I will work to ensure that our neighborhoods are designed not just with cars in mind, but also for people with disabilities, walkers, runners, cyclists, because healthy places make healthy people, and healthy environments can promote health equity for us all. I've also heard about a lack of streetlights in some areas of the ward where people want them for safety and security. And as far as the city as a whole is concerned, I think we seriously need to reimagine not just policing, but also affordable housing. There are many ways to achieve affordable housing. We can build it, we can acquire it, and we can preserve it. But the bottom line is we need to make Urbana accessible and safe for everyone.
Thank you. Ms. McDonald, what are the biggest unaddressed issues in Ward 5?
The biggest unaddressed issues in Ward 5 right now are, as Chaundra said, there are quite a few right now. I would say that the one that comes to my mind is standing up for more of tenants' rights and not so much standing up or giving so much power to landlords in Ward 5. I think a lot has happened over the last 30 years as far as giving property and away to landlords where it used to be open areas, open fields. There is a air quality issue from the emulsicoat plant that is still unofficially addressed. The company has invited people on for tours, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's addressed. Obviously, police brutality is a huge issue of not only 2020, but since the origination of this country, and Urbana is no exception of that. We need to address our white supremacy issues in our law enforcement and in our culture. So,
thank you. Ms. McDonald, this kind of follows up what you were saying. Are there designated problem properties in Ward 5? And what can the city do about them? And how can it hold landlords accountable?
How does the city of Urbana define problem properties? I believe it's any property that gets excessive calls, whether it's like there's excessive debris or weeds or anything like that, and how can landlords be held accountable? It's a good question. I don't necessarily have all the answers for that. It's not necessarily what I would be focusing on as a alderperson. I would be focusing on holding landlords accountable, but maybe in different ways. So just give me a second to think about that. If I have the second.
Sure.
How do we hold them accountable? Honestly, I'm just worried about people's quality of life. I just hope that the people living in the buildings are okay. So mostly I would just be refocusing on making sure that the people that live in those houses have the resources to be okay, and to make sure that they have a strong understanding of the tenants' rights ordinances in Urbana. So,
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Bishop, does the Ward 5 have any designated problem properties, and do you know how the city deals with them and how to hold landlords accountable?
As Meghan said, that's a great question. I think right now there's a process in place where it's up to the neighbors to make a number of complaints on a particular property. And then there's an inspection and a review, and what seems like an endless ability to appeal, and then allow for the problem landlord to continue to have derelict or unsafe property indefinitely. I have spoken with a few neighbors down toward Cottage Grove area who have said that there are a number of properties down there that are eyesores and real problems there. So I would like to make it easier for the city to kind of clamp down on those predatory and problem landlords. And obviously that needs to be finally balanced with people's property rights as well. We need to make sure that the people who own those properties, why they're neglecting them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Ms. Bishop, what do you think will be your biggest challenge if you're elected?
The biggest challenge, obviously, right now, I think, is COVID-19 pandemic. I personally am working in the health department to help with the response for the community. Our small businesses have been hit very hard, and it's challenging for municipalities throughout our country to keep small businesses going, but also pairing that with making sure that public health measures are being enforced to keep the community safe. I think finding a delicate balance between those two is probably the biggest challenge going forward. And I hope that we can continue working with public health to continue a well rolled out vaccine campaign and continue to stress the importance of people receiving that vaccination to help get our small city back on its feet.
Thank you. Ms. McDonald, what do you think will be your biggest challenge if you're elected?
My biggest challenge if elected. I feel like I've already overcome a lot of the challenges that I wasn't, maybe I was expecting. I think because of my age and the fact that I am not somebody who has a history in politics, it'll be a little bit more difficult to maybe earn my colleagues' respect. And I hope that they just hear me out and hear the research that I bring to the table and the community concerns and know that I'm not just speaking for a 26-year-old white woman. I'm here speaking for a variety of people that have reached out to me for help, and I have translated those asks for help into needs that the city could fulfill. And what I do isn't extraordinary as far as like helping people out, but people have told me that the way that I do it is exceptional enough in a way that maybe I should have tried for city office. So that's what I'm doing, and I hope that people will just give me a chance.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. How will you make the city affordable and safe?
How will I make the city affordable and safe?
Yes.
Oh, easy. I would defund the police. I would take the money away from the police department, and I would scrutinize and check every line of their budget and make sure that every dollar is necessary. And most of it probably isn't, because there are definitely different ways to keep our community safe and healthy and address the issues of crime. So I'll just keep it short and sweet and say, yeah, I would defund the police and I would invest in alternatives of community care.
Thank you. And Ms. Bishop, how will you make the city affordable and safe?
Affordable housing and increased violent crime are crises that seem very big, and even the idea of developing affordable housing from the ground up is expensive and complex. There are developers that spend years working with numerous funding sources, government agencies, consultants, and contractors. And though these crises are immense, there is still hope. City Council has an enormous power to create the transformative change required to address these urgent needs. By implementing a variety of affordable housing prevention strategies, we can stem the tide of people falling into homelessness, keeping people housed and safe.
Thank you. Ms. Bishop, there were a couple questions on racial injustice, and what do you think Urbana should do to address issues of racial injustice and specifically citizen review of police, school resource officers, and police misconduct?
Okay. Well, as a Black woman, I've lived my entire adult life in communities where I have been a minority. I have friends from all across the spectrum, and I seek to live harmoniously with them all. Everyone deserves access to real support in an emergency, whether it's like domestic disturbance or mental health crisis. But I and so many Black people have had upsetting experiences in both emergent and non-emergent interactions with police. Today, residents are faced with an almost impossible choice. Ignore any concerns they have for their own safety or call in a potentially lethal armed unit that can totally exacerbate a tenuous situation into one that ends with like incarceration or violence or even death. As activists and organizers and victims of police violence and discrimination have been telling us for years, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. We need to truly transform vision of public safety. In addition, ensuring that the makeup of the city council actually looks like the city of Urbana. Right now, there are 7 alder people, 8 if you include the mayor, and only 1 of them is Black. That's not representative of the city's population.
Okay, and so Ms. McDonald, what do you think Urbana should do to address issues of racial injustice and specifically citizen review of police, school resource officers, and police misconduct?
I think we should reappoint a new police chief, for one, who understands why 56% of Black youth end up being arrested in our Urbana schools and sent. 56% of the youth that are arrested in our Urbana schools are Black that are sent to jail. And when asked why he thinks that is, Chief Seraphin said, well, that's the $10 million question. It's not a $10 million question. It's a really easy answer. It's racism. So the police chief his appointment can be re-reviewed at any point. The mayor said that herself. It hasn't been done. I think admitting that racial injustice exists needs to happen. I think there was a lot of censorship and avoidance of those conversations during the last year of 2020. As far as school resource officers, we're spending $300,000 on school resource officers, which we shouldn't even call them that, because I don't know what resources they're providing. I think they're just draining our resources, honestly. So yeah, we just really need to reimagine our priorities and not reimagine, be straight up about our priorities and spend our money and appoint police chiefs and city workers that represent what we actually value and know is true, which is that racism exists, and that's why Black youth are arrested the most at the highest rate. So yeah, thank you for letting me finish that thought.
So Ms. McDonald, have you had any personal experiences that have shaped your views on criminal justice?
Do I have any personal
experiences that have shaped your views?
Yes, I do. Like my own personal experience. Okay, I guess there's so many, not so many stories of my own personal, but it's like I could talk about my friends or I could talk about my own personal life. So I'm just trying to decide which way to go here. I have had friends be incarcerated that I have had to bail out and because they could not afford their bail. And that is unjust. And today, Illinois passed the Pretrial Fairness Act along with the other stuff that was in that reformative bill. So that's exciting that Illinois, besides Washington, D.C., is leading the fight on that, on ending cash bail. So I've had to bail friends out. I suffered from alcohol addiction for years. And as a white woman, I did not experience the same amount of criminalization that a lot of my friends of color experienced for suffering the exact same way. And I just don't think that's right. And I want to make sure that everybody has the exact same access to healing and resources, regardless of the color of their skin. And yeah, regardless of how much money is in their pocket, they shouldn't have to sit in jail. So.
Thank you. Ms. McDonald, have you had any personal experiences that have shaped your views on criminal justice?
You mean Ms. Bishop?
Ms. Bishop. All right.
Okay, just checking.
It's not so hard with just 2 of you. You think I can get it straight?
Would you mind repeating the question?
Sure. Have you had any personal experiences that have shaped your views on criminal justice?
Definitely. As a Black woman, I'm intimately familiar with those nerves that sort of take over your body whenever a police car is riding behind you, even though you've done nothing wrong. So many people feel the same way that I do, and this is no longer acceptable, and it's time for a change. And that change, the first major step was that criminal justice reform bill that just passed and is sitting on the governor's desk as we speak. I think there's a real need for a complete overhaul of the police system in this country. It's increasingly obvious that not every community is policed equitably. Whether you want to call it defunding, divestment, reform, change, or accountability, the fact is we have to do significantly more to make sure that every single person in our country, as well as in the city of Urbana, feels comfortable and content with their police department. I imagine a police safety department as one that centers care and restorative justice rather than punishment and violence at its core. A department that operates locally in the neighborhood and heavily invests in partnerships with individuals and communities.
Thank you. Ms. Bishop. Many residents are concerned about sustainable, appropriate preservation of houses and structures and redevelopment that is compatible with existing structures. How can residents be involved in the process of approving appropriate developer projects?
Well, I think that it should first begin with looking at the comprehensive plan. I think the last plan was done in 2005, and I think it's time to obviously address that again as things have changed. And Urbana's planning division could probably use that update. And I think it shouldn't be a top-down process, but it should be an open process where residents have a say in what their neighborhood looks like and operates. Something I would personally like to see is neighborhoods that are equitable, mixed income communities where both residents and stakeholders are active in participating in planning for those high quality, affordable housing. And also while preserving that historic character and the sense of community that Urbana does so well. I think if we could make sure that we're also passing strong regulations, preventing companies from polluting our air and water, that also goes into improving, having residents access, be involved in planning there for their community.
Thank you. Ms. McDonald. Residents are concerned about sustainable and appropriate preservation of structures and redevelopment that is compatible with older homes and structures. How can they be involved in the process of approving appropriate developer projects?
I guess I would find out more when I was on council. But for now, I think my advice would be to just show up to city council meetings when those planning projects are being voted on or being discussed. Usually you can go to the Urbana City Council website and look at the agenda, and it'll have a expanded, detailed explanation of whatever they're going on about during the meeting. So this wasn't in Ward 5, this was on Lincoln Avenue about 8 years ago. There was a strip of historic houses, and I guess it was considered historic East Urbana. It wasn't Ward 5, but it was like right on campus. I remember I showed up and I tried to save a strip of historic houses from being knocked down, like 4 or 5 of them. And it was up to the city council whether or not to approve it or not. And I got I wanted to dub the house a historic landmark. And if it had been done so, then it would have been saved, but only 2 city council members voted yes and 5 voted no. So there are ways to influence the city council to be a part of these planning decisions.
Thank you. And Ms. McDonald, what prior experiences have you had that prepare you for this office? And what has been your prior involvement with city government?
Well, kind of like I just said, I've been showing up to city council meetings. The first one I ever showed up to was when I was 18, and I showed up to try to save a strip of historic houses in Urbana and tried to dub them as a historic landmark. So I've been involved in the city as far as showing up to city council meetings. I am a local organizer. That's how people know me, I think, the most, is from organizing protests or from organizing mutual aid calls, whether that's, hey, this mom needs diapers, hey, this mom needs clothes for her baby. I think that, yeah, that's pretty much about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Ms. Bishop, what prior experiences have you had that prepare you for this office, and what has been your prior involvement in city government?
As I've said, I've worked in communities across the state with a wide variety of people, doing work that improves the livelihood of residents and communities, as well as the community as a whole, whether that be their built environment or generally improving health outcomes. And I don't have any experience necessarily serving in city government, but working alongside city governments. I've had experience doing that, helping them implement various initiatives that work to, as I said, improve those health outcomes. I'm in my current position. I work in both Champaign and Vermilion counties. I'm collaborating with local government, health departments, mental health boards, hospitals, and have done so in various aspects, including substance abuse and chronic disease prevention.
Thank you. And I must say that the people of the city of Urbana are very interested in their elected officials. We got more questions for a ward alderperson than we have for any other election that I can remember. And so we can't get to all of them. And so we come to closing statements. So 2 minutes. Ms. Bishop, you go first.
Okay. Thank you again for having me this evening. I want to say that this campaign comes from a place of hope. We have an opportunity now to capture the energy of residents who are frustrated with our national inaction on things that matter to us. I want to use this campaign to turn our collective energies into keeping this incredible city vibrant, just, and welcoming for all. No matter your race, gender, immigration status, or sexuality, I want to help continue to build an inclusive Urbana that's livable for decades to come. The fact is, we have to do something different. Let's build something new. Let's spend our city's resources on evidence-based solutions for improving public safety, create a city where everyone has safe, comfortable, stable housing, where our built environment lends to improving our health. The City Council should be thinking bigger, making bolder moves to tackle issues like racism, poverty, housing, and policing. To the Council, I would bring a new and unique perspective with my life and professional experience, working to help make communities healthy and safe. Let's follow the leads of Black organizers and prioritize services for low-income communities so as to undo the harm of centuries of racist policies, to make sure that every single person in the city knows that the government is working for them, protects them, and serves them. There's no one solution to these crises we're in. Collaboratively, we can think of dozens. We need to listen to our neighbors on everyday issues affecting them and work to resolve them. We need a council that works on all these issues, one that prioritizes the inputs of its residents and community groups to come up with solutions together and reimagine the way we govern so that every single person feels seen and included. And that's what I would bring to the Urbana City Council if I'm fortunate to have your support. To join me in this progressive campaign, visit votechaundra.com. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. McDonald.
Alrighty. Yeah, so thanks again, y'all, for inviting me to participate. As I've said at other points in my campaign, I'm not a politician. I'm part of the marginalized working class. I'm not comfortable doing these forums or raising money or making signs, but I'll do whatever is reasonable for a chance to get on city council to talk about and listen to the issues that my neighbors truly care about and think about and value. I look forward to continued conversations with the people of Urbana, especially the people from Ward 5, whether that's in person from a distance or online or email or on the phone. I'm trying to be as available as possible for the next 6 weeks up until February 23rd, and then even after that, but as much as possible until then. I think it's time we stop trying to force ourselves to do what we've always done, which is, act in this, living in this reactive fear, whether instead of a proactive love. I hope my involvement, I hope the things that you remember from today are that I've been involved with this community, my willingness to be transparent and to fight for transparency, and my insistence that defunding the police and holding police accountable it's not a scary phrase, it's not a scary concept, and if it is, that's the problem. Defunding the police literally translates to giving more money to our community and not to a route that we've gone down for decades. It's time to invest in other solutions and other politicians, other leaders. Like I said, I'm not a politician, so let's invest in other leaders. And I hope I can help us get to a better, inclusive, actually safer space. And thanks again for having me.
Thank you. And thanks again to the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, and the News-Gazette for sponsoring this forum. And thanks, a very special thanks to Chaundra von Behrens, who has put all of these together and has been our timekeeper for this night. Just a reminder, it's not too late to register to vote for the February 23rd primary. The information is on the county clerk's website. Also, there will be voting by mail, early voting, and voting on February 23rd itself. Because of the low turnout of municipal elections, there is probably a consolidation of polling places. So before you go out on February 23rd, check the county clerk's website for your polling place. I would urge everyone to visit votechampaign.org, which is a nonpartisan website, which has information about all of the candidates. And tonight's forum will be attached to that website. So thank you and good night.